Um, be sure to log into jetnation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web. Wanted to hop on today, couldn't resist. Impromptu. I'm looking at these AFC East standings. I'm looking at what we saw unfold yesterday and what a difference 8 days makes. Jets were getting ready to play the Eagles 8 days ago, and a lot of us, myself included, didn't give them a chance in hell to win that game. I did say I said they had a shot to win it if they could get, if the pass rush was off the charts, which it was, but still didn't expect that. Didn't think the Jets would manage to pull that one off. They did. And then you get this week, you get the Dolphins losing to the Eagles, the Bills losing to the Patriots, and things getting tighter in that AFC East. And listen, I always get mad when people go over the top with these, when you have a team who's playing well and you get these people who are like, oh, who have they played? Who have they played? And I feel like that's an attempt to take away from a team the fact that they've played well, because as they say, can only play who's on your schedule, right? You can't hold it against the Dolphins that they haven't played anybody yet or they haven't beaten a quality opponent yet. Um, and you can that I feel like that's a fair thing to say. However, it's also fair to ask, can the Dolphins hang with a quality opponent? Can the Dolphins beat a quality opponent? So that's not taking away what they've done. It's asking what they're capable of doing. And as they said on the broadcast last night, now listen, I knew the Dolphins hadn't beaten a top tier opponent. What I didn't realize is that their overall record against the overall record of the teams that had won was 5-27. All the teams they beat, 5-27 combined. That was, I mean, I didn't know it was quite that bad. So the Dolphins lose, Bills lose, Patriots win. There was all the talk about Tua during the week. Stephen A. Smith with he doesn't throw the ball downfield. Listen, if you're going to question Tua, I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I think if there's one thing you can look at with him and say, well, this kind of might be hiding something, there might be something there, is the fact that he's playing with Tyreek Hill, who is essentially, and I hate using the term because I feel like people use it all the time, but he's a cheat code. He really is. When you watch Tua throw to Tyreek Hill, I get the same feeling I get when I watch a college prospect at a top college throwing to receivers where there is not a defender within 10 yards. And these guys are just wide open. And a lot of these balls, yeah, Tua is throwing 30, 40, 50-yard completions, but a lot of them are to a guy who is essentially uncovered. Like by the time he hits his top gear, he's uncovered. Sauce Gardner said it last year. I can't remember if it was at the Pro Bowl. So I heard him doing an interview and they said, what's the difference covering a guy who runs a 4.5 and a 4.4? What's the difference? And Sauce was kind of like, it's not really a difference. Like it's about the same. But then he said, the only guy who's different, the only guy whose speed you can feel is Tyreek Hill, is Cheetah. Covering him is different. You got to have another gear. So and we see it every week with Tua. Saw it very early on last night at a deep completion over the middle, might have been their first drive. He just runs these deep in cuts. The DB see him coming. It looks like he's going to hit that top gear, and they back off and bail to avoid getting beat deep. And he's got 10, 15 yards underneath the free space to work with, and Tua's got a 20, 25-yard completion. So, and again, I'm not saying Tua couldn't make that throw in tight coverage. I'm saying that because Tua, his accuracy is ridiculous. It really is. But some of the throws he makes, you look at and you think nobody has a guy like that makes it that easy. And that's exactly what Tyreek Hill does. But the Bills, so you're looking at Tua, you're looking at Josh Allen in Buffalo, and you're starting to wonder. At least I'm starting to wonder: have I been overrating this guy? Because listen, I've made the fun and the jokes of Josh Allen when he was drafted, just like a lot of people did about he's a running back playing quarterback and all that. But I did say when he was drafted, and I had this discussion with several people who kind of laughed at the pick. I said, I'm not quite gonna laugh at this guy yet. Like I'll have a little bit of fun, a little bit of banter back and forth with Bills fans or whatever. But I'm looking at this guy's skill set, and he can do some things that not many people can do. He runs better than most quarterbacks, and he can throw it as far as anyone you've ever seen in your life, with ridiculous velocity. So if you can harness that and get him on the right page, then he can be a player. And he is. I'm not sitting here saying Josh Allen isn't a great quarterback. I'm just saying, is he as good as a lot of us have sort of given him credit for over the years? Because he's lost to some teams that in games you expect him to win. Just flat out that this is a team some people were picking to go to the Super Bowl. Um, and nobody was picking the Jets to go to the Super Bowl when Aaron Rodgers went down, and rightfully so, right? So he's playing He's playing Zach and the Jets, and then yesterday, Mac Jones and the Patriots, who had lost their last few games by a combined score of, 85,000 to 6. And they go up there and they lose to the and listen, Belichick's Belichick. Just when you think he's losing it and he's done, he finds a way to win a game after getting demolished in his last couple, which is absolutely insane. But the division is now you have the Jets sitting at 5-3, Miami, their first truly tough opponent, and it did not go well for them. And then Buffalo loses, and Buffalo now you could say has lost some games to teams that they were supposed to beat. You can do that over the course of a season, but you do that too many times, you lose, 3, 4 games that you should win in this division. And when I say should win, I don't mean like you played better on the day and lost. I mean, people look at your roster, look at your opponent, man for man, player for player, look at everything together, and the general consensus is that this is a game you should win. You've got the better quarterback, you've got the better or equal coaching, you've got the better or equal talent 1 through 53, but your quarterback is by far head and shoulders above their quarterback. Those are the games you should win. And if we're looking at it that way, Josh Allen has already lost 2 games that he should have won. Um, and I mean, is that a little unfair? Well, he lost them because he played terrible, right? Like you can't take away from the Jets what they did on defense. They absolutely dominated him. But he's supposed to be better than that. He's supposed to be this quarterback who doesn't do the things that he often does. So the Bills, I'd love to know how their fans are feeling, how if they're worried about Josh Allen. But really, with the Giants coming up next for the Jets, a winnable football game. Although I will say the Giants, watching them against the Bills, their defense looked a lot better than I expected it to. So could be another low scoring affair. Whether it's Tyrod Taylor or Daniel Jones, I expect the Jets defense to be able to shut them down and avoid that letdown loss, right? Avoid that post euphoric win and then coming in a little bit too high on yourself and having a letdown. That's what the Jets obviously hoping to avoid coming out of the bye week. But what I'm anxious to see against the Giants, I'm not going to put a lot of stock in what we hear from Robert Saleh during the week. Um, if he announces any changes, I'd be really surprised. Saleh, obviously, at this point, is the type of guy who will not always be upfront about what he's planning on doing, whether it's injuries, whether it's guys who are going to play or not play. But I think this is an opportunity for the Jets, and I wrote this earlier in the week. I think this is an opportunity for Robert Saleh and his coaching staff to sit down and take an honest look at the roster and say, look, Dalvin Cook is not the second best running back on this roster. Okay, so let's put him off to the side. He should be inactive, if we're being honest. I don't think it'll go to that extent. It'd be nice if it did, but I don't think it will. But let's see somebody else in there. Let's see, as we've said before, Michael Carter, Izzy Abanikanda, somebody. At tight end, we've talked about CJ Uzama. Let's see if CJ Uzama's not. Cook doesn't really bring anything. Uzama brings something. He's an okay player, but Jeremy Ruckert has looked like the better player so far this season. So let's get him some more reps over Uzama. But I'm not. Listen, use the 3 tight end sets and get Uzama on the field. I'm not saying bench him. I'm not saying he shouldn't be there. That's the case with Cook. Uzama, I think a reduced role would be appropriate. And again, this is where I'm hoping that bye week is an opportunity for them to do that self scouting and be honest with themselves and say this is what we need to do moving forward. Carl Lawson's another one. Look, Carl Lawson. There are rumors the Jets are willing to trade. Listen, these headlines: Jets willing to trade Dalvin Cook and Carl Lawson. Well, yeah. The what are either of those players doing right now that would make you want to have them on your roster? Of course they're willing to trade them. Who wouldn't be willing to trade them? Greg Rallo says in the chat, Jets have a chance to take the division. Listen, after yesterday, after seeing what the Eagles did to Miami, I think that you can't rule anything out at this point. You've beaten the Bills once. Miami's shown that they are beatable, and the Jets will have they've got 2 cracks against them coming up. But what we're going to see from the Jets coming out of the bye is going to be interesting. Are we going to see Cook? Is Lawson going to be on the team? I mean, the thing with Lawson and Cook, with Cook, I can't really see anyone giving up anything for him. He's averaging, what is he? I think he's at 2.8 a carry right now. How many running backs on NFL rosters right now would not be capable of averaging 2.8 yards a carry? Like, what does Dalvin Cook bring that a team can't find from a practice squad running back. And with that being the case, why would you give up any asset? Even if it's a conditional seventh, why would you give up anything for Dalvin Cook when you can find someone to be just as productive and give up nothing? So I don't see how you can deal Cook. Lawson, on the other hand, as I've said before, he's been invisible this season. He doesn't have a sack. I don't think he has a QB hit. He might have. I think PFF has him down for one or two pressures. Um, but the one thing you maybe can hang your hat on is that teams might look at him and say, "Slow start, and we need an edge rusher." Like it's a premium position. Edge is a premium position. If you're that desperate, if you're hurting that bad for an edge rusher, maybe you're willing to give up something, a day 3 pick for Carl Lawson. And the reason I bring up Carl Lawson is because let's get Will McDonald on the field some more, right? When I see Carl Lawson out there doing nothing, completely ineffective, I just can't help but think like, why isn't Will McDonald getting these reps? And Robert Saleh said the other day, or a week or so ago, a week and a half ago, about Dalvin Cook. Oh, he's getting his legs under him. He hasn't been right. Then why has he been playing? I mean, so after he's stunk it up for 5 games, 6 games, contributed nothing, been a liability to the rest of the roster, you come out and you say, yeah, he's almost to the point where he's good. He's in a couple of weeks he'll be ready to play. Okay. So why have you been I don't know. I think the Dalvin Cook thing is frustrating, but at the same time, we're seeing his carries, his snaps are diminishing significantly. So I'm hoping that's just a sign of what's to come, and we'll continue to see that snap count drop, and he'll eventually get phased out. But again, I don't see how you're getting anything for him in a trade. Carl Lawson, maybe you get a day 3 pick. I've seen people float Hunter Renfrow for Carl Lawson. I think the only way that works is if Josh McDaniel is how in the world if you're the Raiders, you've got to you're not going to say it publicly, but you've got to be looking at that hire and going, "Oh, what did we just do? We just got beat by a Division II quarterback making his NFL debut." Um, man, and listen, I understand Brian Hoyer is he's not exactly going to the Hall of Fame, but he's a 14, 15-year veteran. Should be able to get him in there to manage a game and score some points. Greg Rallo says again, Cook, Cobb, and Uzama need to sit this game out. Izzy, Ruckert, and Gibson. Hey, listen, Greg, a lot of us have been calling for this for weeks. I said about a week ago, this team is struggling in the red zone. Give me some Jason Brownlee. Jason Brownlee, 6'2". He's got the long arms. He's got great hands. Let him throw him some balls one-on-one in the red. Listen, when I talked about him coming out of college pre-draft and said that he was a guy I thought the Jets should target, it was because of his ability to beat guys in tight crowds and tight coverage, like his ability to go up in a crowd and pull the ball down. He's a guy who would consistently make spectacular catches in college, and he's a guy that, against the Giants, I would love to see the Jets come out and say, "Hey, let's get him some run here." Brownlee's good, yeah. Greg, I think so too. As I said pre-draft, I did an article naming 6 guys the Jets should be watching closely at the combine because I thought they'd be good players, and they ended up with 2 of them. I had Izzy Abanikanda and Jason Brownlee on there, and I just think Brownlee's hands in that red zone where, listen, things have to come together in the red zone. I see people saying when I suggested Brownlee, somebody said, "Why? We can't get the ball to him in the red zone anyway." I'm as frustrated as anyone about the red zone issues, but I refuse to believe, as I sit here today, that the Jets over the next 11 games are going to continue to get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trips into the red zone and not start scoring touchdowns. Because if that's the case, then they're about to get, a season from Greg Zuerlein in which we see him kick like 300 field goals. It just has to come together. And it's not as if this is something that they've been dealing with for a while with Zach Wilson, because if you think back to last year, Zach Wilson couldn't even get them in the red zone, right? Or not as frequently as he has been. So we've seen the growth, we've seen the progress, we've seen them move the ball between the 20s, and I really, truly, honestly believe that sometime in the next couple of weeks, we're going to start seeing the touchdown passes pile up. I'm not saying he can throw 5 a game, but a couple a game, one to 2 a game, could get Zach to where he throws 20, 22 touchdowns this year, and I think that's where he's going to land. I have people saying, I tweeted that the other day, and people are saying, "You're crazy. How can you say he only has 5 touchdowns? How's he going to throw so many more?" Because I think he's going to keep getting better. Like, it's not that hard. He's consistently getting them inside the 20. If he's getting you inside the 25, 6 times and he continues to get better, I don't think it's crazy to say that once a game, one or two of those 5 or 6 trips will be touchdowns. And we'll look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they will. Maybe Greg Zuerlein is about to kick. What do we got? Maybe Greg Zuerlein is about to kick 70 more field goals this season. And I'd have to look up the numbers. I'm sure this would be a record of some type. How about Ruckert in the slot, played wide receiver? Listen, I would move Ruckert, given his size, given his hands. I'd absolutely move him around. I'd have him at H-back, leaking out into the flat. I'd have him in the slot, try to create some one-on-one matchups. Again, use that size against these guys. I think if you had Brownlee and Ruckert, sometimes we're seeing the Jets go 4 and 5 wide in the red zone. You want to do that, and Robert Saleh come out and get the Giants off guard. How about you have Jason Brownlee active and you have Ruckert and you use these guys in the red zone and listen, if you want to sit here and say, well, Zach isn't seeing the open guy, which there have been times where he hasn't, give him as many big guys with good hands as possible so that whoever he throws it to, you're giving yourself a great chance of the ball being caught. I mean, listen, I know Randall Cobb caught the 2-point conversion the other day, but no, give me a guy who's got the size, the length, the hands, like a Brownlee. Give me Ruckert. Give me these bigger dudes in the red zone where basically there's no wrong choices, Zach. We don't have anyone who's undersized. We don't have anyone who can't move quickly laterally to get a little separation. It's been frustrating, but again, I refuse to believe that the Jets are going to continue getting into the red zone as frequently as they are, and they're just going to come away with 5, 6 field goals every week. It's absolutely nuts. Can the Jets make a deal for somebody? Trade deadline is next week. We've mentioned the names. Can you get a DeAndre Hopkins? Can you get a Hollywood Brown who's supposedly not available? But listen, if you call and you make the right offer, who knows? But Joe Douglas, whether it's O-line, whether it's receiver, you got to bring in some reinforcements. We haven't heard the team comment on Joe Tippmann, but as we said the other day, Rich Cimini said on the Jake Assman show that he thought this was going to be a lengthy injury. And Robert Saleh did say that he was worried about that it could be a lengthy thing. And as we've discussed about Robert Saleh a million times now, if he says it's going to be a day, assume it's going to be a month. We've heard Robert Saleh a million times. This guy's going to play. Oh, he's going on injured reserve. This guy, we're a little bit worried. Oh, he's gone for 2 months. So when Robert Saleh says he thinks it's going to be a lengthy thing, expect Joe Tippmann here to miss a month or two. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not. I'm not holding my breath on that. And I get, look, Saleh doesn't want to tip his hand, or I don't see a huge benefit to it, but and maybe the training staff is just bad at their jobs. I mean, I guess that's possible, but I would imagine heads would be rolling by now. By the way, you should be logging into jetnation.com, most active Jets message board on the web. People in there, there's so much to talk about right now. I mean, some fans are pumped. There are still those who don't want Zach Wilson. There are people, banging the drum for it's not too late to trade for a quarterback. I'm not there. I don't see it happening at all. I think Joe Douglas, this is an opportunity for him. If Zach Wilson plays well, not that Joe Douglas's job is in jeopardy at all, but the sort of the high standing he has within the organization, within the league, I think if Zach Wilson plays well and gets this team to the playoffs, then Joe Douglas is just that much more, he can kind of stand on the picks he's made. Because let's face it, right now, Zach Wilson is his worst pick. Zach Wilson has been more bad more often than he's been good, but he looks like he's getting it together, which is great news. But one thing we touched on recently, and I think that it's kind of overlooked that class, Joe Douglas's first class. That class was being written off. I think I may have done a pod about it, talking about Mekhi Becton is a guy who was absolutely written off. Ashton Davis was a guy who I thought he was gone. Becton I liked. I thought he's going to stay around. He's going to be a great player. And it's great to see Mekhi Becton playing at the level he's playing right now. Ashton Davis, I thought would be gone. He's still hanging around as a backup. Nothing special in terms of he's not playing a ton of reps as a regular, but he's doing a good job on specials. And then, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, Bryce Hall. Bryce Hall has been way better than any of us expected this year, which is weird because, it was a year or two ago after that rookie year when he played well and you thought, okay, even when he had those, when he was the starter in his rookie year or second year, Of course, he was injured his rookie year, coming into the year injured. And you're kind of thinking when he starts in that second year that he was, well, at least I can't speak for everyone. I had the feeling like I don't see this guy being a regular starter, but I think he's going to be a guy they keep around. And this in game experience is going to be hugely valuable moving forward. He's going to be an experienced backup. And then he didn't play well his second year, or sorry, his third year. And then he was really relegated to the bench last season. Only played a handful of snaps. I thought he was on his way out. And now he's played really well. So that Joe Douglas draft class, where plenty of people were saying last year that it was written off, and once Mekhi Becton's gone, that's it. Davis isn't going to make the roster. Hall's not going to make the roster, and there's going to be zero hits out of that class. Now it looks like you got yourself a starting left tackle, a backup safety, a special teamer, and a fringe starting quarterback, a corner. At the very least, a quality backup. Who can be a spot starter for you. And that's what Bryce Hall has done. And I hope he keeps doing. Listen, everything I've heard about Bryce Hall is getting drafted. Like, you don't hear a bad word about the guy. He hasn't complained. Work ethic's good. It's just you felt like in the very, very limited playing time he was getting, he didn't look as good as he did in that first year when he got all those starts. In year two, when he got all those starts. So you started to wonder, is this guy's game just tailing off and he's going to be gone to start this season? Like I said, I know that I expected it. I don't believe I had him on my 53, my projected 53, and a lot of people didn't. And then even when he stuck, you thought, okay, well, this is just until Eccles comes back because he's suspended week one, and then he sticks around again. And then you hear he's starting, and you think, oh boy, here we go. He's played really well. So 2 quality starts for him. So that Joe Douglas draft class that was written off looks like we've produced, or like the Jets have produced some quality players out of that group. And now it's a matter of, does Joe Douglas, again, with this trade deadline coming, does he make a deal? How many teams are willing to make deals? Obviously, you're going to call the teams that are out of the playoff out of the playoff race. These teams that, these winless or 1 or 2 win teams, and see if they have anyone they're willing to part with. Tristan Colon was a guy I mentioned the other day as well. Of course, he was with the Jets this offseason. Signed with them as a free agent. I thought he looked good in the preseason. He's currently a member of the Arizona Cardinals, and they are not very good. So maybe the Cardinals are willing to make a move there and give him up for a day 3 pick, and you get a little bit of insurance. You're adding a guy who knows the system. Let's see. Justin says, if we can somehow keep our head above water long enough to make the playoffs, hope Rodgers can come back, excuse me, and make the back for the playoffs. I'll tell you what, we talked about this the other day, myself and Chris Schubert on Jet Nation Live. It sounds crazy. I can't allow myself to believe it because it's so off the wall. It's so bizarre. And the last thing I want to see is that week 11, 12, 13 rolls around and we hear that Rodgers has re-injured the Achilles because he pushed too hard and he did too much, and now he's going to miss time going into next year. And really, and Justin, listen, it's far off. It's really far off, but I've heard people have this conversation, and I think it makes sense. A lot of it's going to depend on how Zach Wilson's playing. Like, if this team, we say keep our head above water, but if this team is playing really well and they kind of are heading into the playoffs with Zach Wilson, let's say Zach Wilson in the 4 games, before Rodgers feels like he's healthy, let's say he throws 10 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, and you've got a couple of blowout wins. You're going to bench him? You're going to bench your starting quarterback who's, playing at a high level with a defense that's playing lights out? I don't know that I would do that. I mean, listen, we all want to see Aaron Rodgers under center, but if we're talking about a team that's in the playoffs, we have to assume we're talking about a quarterback that's playing well enough to get them there. So put it this way. I hope this is a conversation we're having in week 17 or 18. I hope we're biting our nails wondering what the Jets are going to do, because that'll mean they got there. That'll mean they made the playoffs. Greg says we need more play action, maybe a flea flicker trick plays that'll open things up for Brees. Wholly agree on both. And listen, trick plays are fun, and it's great to open things up to keep a defense off balance. But the play action, we've seen it. The stats are out there. The tweets are out there. Zach Wilson play action this year has been fantastic. Hey, Dylan, our good friend, how are we doing, buddy? Dylan, perfect weekend from a standings perspective. Absolutely. I mean, and I said a few weeks ago, the Patriots have looked so bad. I'm thinking, are they tanking? Like, is this them going for Caleb Williams or Drake May? So I'm like, I hope the Patriots win 5 or 6 games. So that was yesterday's result was perfect in that respect. That The Pats get a win, get that much closer to 5 or 6. I think that would put them safely out of the range of a quarterback or of one of those quarterbacks. Um, and yeah, Dolphins lose in a game, as I said, their first, you know, it would have been their first win against a really quality opponent. And despite that opponent having an injured quarterback, the Dolphins couldn't pull it off, which was great to see. And of course, Buffalo losing, which was a game it looked like they really bounced back. Let's see, what's Dylan saying? I think there needs to be a Caleb Williams discussion about what he does at the end of the season. Yeah, listen, I'm assuming Dylan's talking about what Caleb Williams does in terms of returning to college or not. He has made the point that he holds all the cards. NIL will keep him paid, and if he doesn't like the team he's coming out for, and listen, it's an interesting question because let's say it is New England, let's say New England does manage to win 2 or 3 games, and they find themselves at the top of the draft with an opportunity to take Caleb Williams. Is Bill Belichick a guy that a young quarterback wants to play for? I don't know. I'm not saying they don't. I'm just thinking there are a lot of coaches that I might rather play for. Who did they take in the first round this year who looked miserable? I can't even remember who the Pats' first round pick was this year. But it was a rare thing. I think it's probably the most upset I've ever seen a player look when they went to the live shot after he was drafted. Looked 100% miserable. But would Caleb Williams want to go play for a guy like Belichick? And when you hear Tom Brady talk about how once he left, like he felt like like he had more freedom. The ability to be himself more, which is probably nice. Let's see. Joe says corner. Oh, of course, yeah. Maybe it wasn't him. I don't think Gonzalez was upset when he was picked. It was a bigger dude, looked like a linebacker. I forget who, but whoever it was did not look happy. Results of this bye week, our team healing should spark us to light up the scoreboard early and make the Giants of the game a laugher. So funny you use that term, Greg. I the other day was thinking about this game, and that's the exact word that popped into my head. I was sitting there and I thought this team needs a laugher. They need a win. Keon White, I think it was. I think it was Keon White. Thanks, Dylan. I'm pretty sure it was. Like, I was sure it was a defensive guy. But yeah, that was the exact term that popped in my head as I was thinking of this game the other day. I was like, this team just needs a laugher. They need Zach Wilson to be able to come off the field in the fourth quarter with some high fives and some attaboys and feel like, we're up by 17 with 8 minutes to go and we're running it down their throats. Maybe even you get one of whoever the number 2 quarterback is that week. I'm assuming it won't be Simeon. But I think he'll remain the practice squad guy. But let's get another quarterback, some handoffs to run out the clock, and just have a loose, chilled out, relaxed victory. That would be great. I don't know that it's in the cards because again, the Giants defense, statistically, here's the funny thing. And I know it was the same thing with the Eagles, but this is worth keeping in mind when the Jets play the Giants this week. If you look at them statistically, and I know I say all the time, it's not just about the numbers on paper and the box scores. I get all that. But you look at the stats defensively, defense against the run, defense against the pass, overall defense. The Jets and Giants are like 14 and 15 in like neck and neck in both categories. I think in passing yards, they're separated by less than 100 yards and yards allowed. However, it's in the red zone where the Giants are giving up way more touchdowns than the Jets. The Jets, as you know, one of the top 3 teams, unless something changed this weekend. Um, the Jets at least even if something changed slightly, there wouldn't have been a dramatic shift in 1 week. The Jets are one of the best red zone defenses in the NFL. Teams are not scoring touchdowns. The Giants, on the other hand, are sort of bottom third. I forget exactly where they were, but I looked at the rankings and I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like, why are these teams separated? Or, why are they not being talked about in the same regard in terms of, statistically they're very similar. What's setting them apart? And so I went down for each category and it was like, well, there you go. Red zone defense. Giants are giving up a lot of scores in the red zone. The Jets are not. Greg says, thank God Becton's staying healthy. We've waited forever. We have, Greg. And look, man, listen, I said this was going to be the Mekhi Becton STFU tour. He was going to prove everybody wrong and have a great year. Things are going well so far. But listen, until we see him, and this isn't a criticism, I'm just saying, until I see him on the field healthy for a couple of years, and I think collectively we all are. We're all gonna cringe anytime he takes more than 1.2 seconds to get off the turf. And the couple times they were checking on him last week, you just think, oh God, here we go. And you're holding your breath. But absolutely, and I'm probably have some bias toward Becton because I really liked him coming out and I wanted him. He was one of the top guys I wanted in that spot. But, of course, they end up taking him, and the injuries have been a pain. Let's see. Joe says it's going to be low scoring game. Giants will get the pressure on the QB. Jets will get well, absolutely. And again, is Joe Tippmann going to play? If he doesn't play, who does? When is does Carter Warren get some reps at some point? Um, the Jets, and I've said it before. I said it before the Tippmann injury. Um, the issue with Joe Douglas has not been that he can't find or draft talented offensive linemen. The issue has been that his talented offensive linemen can't stay healthy. Mekhi Becton missed 2 full seasons. Elijah Vera Tucker will have missed more than half of 2 consecutive seasons, and now Joe Tippmann is hurt for what sounds like it could be an extended period of time. So Joe Douglas is finding high-level, high-quality young offensive linemen that just can't stay healthy. And shout out to Laken Tomlinson, who has not been great, but has been better of late. And that hard guy not to root for. Every time you see the guy in an interview, like he's just such a real dude, and you can tell he cares about this stuff. And more than, yes, I'm a Jets fan, but I just want good things to happen to good people. And Laken Tomlinson to me seems like a really good person. And when you watch him struggle, it's like, damn it. Like, of course I want him to play well because I'm a Jets fan, but I just want this decent human being to not be getting ripped by the fans, which I get. If you play poorly, you're going to get ripped. It comes with the territory. But Laken Tomlinson has been better the last couple weeks. Um, let's see, Justin. I don't say this often, but I think the Jets crush the Giants. I don't think the Giants have a chance. That's Justin. I can see it. I think my conservative nature, like just because the Jets have been so bad for so long, I have a hard time predicting blowouts. But Jesus, if this defensive, look at what the Redskins did to the Giants offensive line. Like they gave them fits. The Jets. This really should be a Jets blowout win, but I just can never assume that. 6 or more sacks, says Greg. I'm right there with you. Like I said, this should be a 5, 6, 7, 8 sack game against this Giants offense. But until the Jets prove they can do that to somebody, I can't get there to say they will. But I think as I watched the Giants and the Giants and Commanders, sorry, I think I said Redskins earlier, Giants, Commanders. As I watched that game, I just thought to myself, Jesus, God, the Jets have to kill this team. They really do. Um, let's see. Joe says top 10 O lines have 4 or 5 drafted starters staying healthy for 2. Yeah, listen, you got to stay healthy. You got to stay healthy. And I think this is why we're going to see another offensive lineman early. I don't know about round 1 this year, but I think we're going to see Joe Douglas. Of course, if he can, he'll make some deals, add some picks. If he can get one in the second round, I think we might see that. Does the Giants DL make you nervous versus? Listen, if Tippmann is out again, any defensive line makes me nervous against this O line because there's no continuity. Every week there's a new starter somewhere. Whether it's the same guy at a different position or just a different guy because they can't stay healthy. So it's been ridiculous. It's not something you don't see guys get hurt this often. It's been absolutely crazy. Let's see. So it's been quite an adventure watching them try to keep this O line together. And as I've said, Joe Douglas, there was actually a thread on this about if, as I said, you see on the bottom there, check out the forums at Jet Nation. There was a thread on our forums this week saying, has the criticism about Joe Douglas building the O line been fair? I didn't even read it because I don't want to hear it because you're either a fair-minded person who understands like he's finding talented guys who don't have injury histories who are getting injured, or you're just like, no, nothing matters, don't care. He can't find a lineman. Like, which is not the case. If you're being fair and objective, Joe Douglas is finding young, talented guys. And again, that's the key there. No injury history. Not like he's drafting guys with tons of red flags for durability and they're getting hurt, in which case you could just fire him and say, stop doing that. He's not doing that. He's drafting young, talented guys with no injury history who are then getting injured. Already the 4th O line combo. I'll tell you what, it feels like about the 7th. It feels like every single week, man. It's absolutely nuts. And that starting combo, what happens to that number when you consider him getting pulled last week with the injury, Tippmann, and bringing in Schweitzer, and the Schweitzer start. I'm not a big Schweitzer guy, but my God, that might be the route you have to go. I don't know what the situation is with Dwayne Brown, and that's been a conversation. Do you go to Mekhi Becton, or do you go to Dwayne Brown at left tackle and ask Mekhi Becton to go back to right tackle. I don't. I'm at this point, I say, listen, Dwayne, we, respected your being a veteran leader who only played the left side, and that's where we kept you. Um, Despite, Mekhi being better at that spot, and we kept him on the right side. But now Becton's playing too well. You can't move him. If Brown isn't willing to move to the right, which I doubt he is, and I understand. He's, if he's not played it and he's not comfortable, he's a veteran guy, he's not going to want to go out there and embarrass himself. Maybe that's when you look at a guy like a Carter Warren, like if Max Mitchell plays well. Robert Turner, I don't see that happening. Let's see if Becton, Tomlinson, Tippmann, AVT, and Mitchell played together for 2 years, they'd be a top 5 O line. They top 5 might be a little rich because of Tomlin. A lot of that would depend on Tomlinson. I feel like Mitchell's solid, good run guy, needs work in the pass as a pass blocker, but they'd be very good. No, listen, any line, Joe. This is Joe talking about this. If you had Becton, Tippmann, and AVT, those 3 guys healthy and on any offensive line, then you would have a chance to be a very good O line, even if the other positions were league average. If Tomlinson and Mitchell were okay, and you had those other 3 guys completely healthy, Joe, I wholly agree with you. Hope the Giants have a third QB ready. RD is going to get them up early. I hope so. I'll tell you what, though, I feel like the Giants look better with Tyrod Taylor than they did with Daniel Jones. That's just my 2 cents, and that's got to be what's the total salary for Daniel Jones and massage guy? I can see his face. The Browns. Deshaun Watson and Daniel Jones. How much are they making combined? And now you've got PJ Brown and Tyrod Taylor outplaying them. That's just, if you're those front offices, you've got to be absolutely horrified looking at those salaries, especially the Browns with the money they guaranteed him. That's nuts. Dylan, I'm scared they start Brown. They can't. They can't. I mean, listen, you can't put anything past them, but I think that ship has sailed. I think they got to look Watson and Jones are the biggest waste. 100 million combined. Whew, that's crazy. Crazy money. And what are the combines? Throw out Joe Burrow. At least Joe Burrow's got the injury, right? Joe Burrow's hurt. Let's see. I'd rather play against Jones too. Tyrod. Yeah, I felt like Tyrod moved the ball better than Daniel Jones did. Daniel Jones, $40 million a year they gave him, if I'm not mistaken. That's absolutely bonkers. So lots to talk about, lots to get ready for Sunday. There's going to be plenty of content on Jet Nation. Haven't done one of these in a few days because leading up to the bye, there's not a ton to go over. But bye week is over. Jets will start getting ready for the Giants. We've got a week till the trade deadline. And how about I said I did my little rant. I don't do a lot of rant videos, but I did one a couple days ago or whatever after the Eagles win, saying what the hell is with these people saying the Eagles handed the Jets this, the Eagles gave the Jets the game, and I said no, the Jets took the game. They did. The Jets won that game. They went out there and lined up and outplayed them. That's that. And now we're seeing it again already. The Eagles go out and beat the Dolphins, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, the Eagles are back now. They had a hiccup. They're back on track. Like instead of saying, oh wow, maybe the Jets are really good because they manhandled the Eagles, and now the Eagles just beat the 5-1 Dolphins. Like, what's wrong with that angle? I saw somebody tweet out, oh, this must be so stressful for defenses having to worry about the tush push because it's essentially you can only give up 8 yards. Instead of saying, hey, hats off to the Jets. The way they got rid of the tush push was by not even letting it get to 3rd and 8, 4th and 8, or 3rd and 2, 4th and 2. They were so good they stopped that from happening. But no, it's got to be about, oh, well, it must have been a bad week for the Eagles. A lot of quarterbacks, if you notice this, folks, a lot of quarterbacks have their bad week against the Jets. Like, I wonder if there's any reason for that. I wonder why Patrick Mahomes had a bad week against the Jets. And I wonder why Josh Allen had a bad week against the Jets. And I wonder why Jalen Hurts had a bad week against the Jets. I don't know. Is there any common thread there? Is there any reason why all of these quarterbacks may be having their worst games against the Jets? Is there anyone who pointed out that if you look at their schedule last year, almost every single quarterback they played had their worst week of the season against the Jets? I wonder why that is. It couldn't be because the Jets have a good defense. It's definitely not that. We need to figure out why all these quarterbacks just all happen to have their worst week when they play Gang Green. Hopefully, that's the case again this week with Daniel Jones or Tyrod Taylor, whoever it's going to be. Thanks for jumping in, being active in the chat. Like I said, this one was impromptu. I'm fired up about this game. I feel like it should be a blowout. I do worry that's the headline you see behind you. Hopefully, this bye week gives the Jets a week to blow off some steam and enjoy the win and celebrate what they did against Philly. Big win for this team. And now that's the bye week. It's behind you. You've got a week of prep to get ready to play the Giants and avoid a hugely disappointing letdown loss. Jets actively ruining MVP hopes. Exactly. Dylan, all these top quarterbacks, if they had to play the Jets every week, they forget about it. Jalen Hurts, 86 interceptions. Same for Josh Allen. How many picks? 3 picks, 4 picks against the Jets? But it's just a coincidence, just a weird coincidence. Exactly, Greg. Jets defense has opposing quarterbacks seeing ghosts. We will end it there. Have a good one, Jets fans. We'll see you in a couple days. Myself, Chris Schubert. Wednesday night, 6:30. Check us out. Have a good one.